When you know that you are queer, but your favorite drink is beer, that's gayish. You can bottom without stopping, but you can't stand going shopping, that's gayish. Oh, gayish, you're probably gayish. Well, life's just too short for narrow stereotypes, so it's gayish. We're also gayish. It's Gayish with Mike and Kyle.
Hello, everyone in the podcast universe. This is Gayish,
the podcast that loves trans fats because they are just as valid as trans skinnies.
Oh, no. I thought you were going to talk about cis fats. Oh, okay.
Yeah, fucks. No. Love everyone. Everyone's great.
I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz.
And we're here to bridge the gap between sexuality and actuality. And today it's totally comfortable.
We're us, the racial experts, are going to talk about interracial dating.
Interracial relationships.
Yeah, well, and actually we will have guests on that know a little bit more about this than us. So we're looking forward to that.
They're not both just random white dudes.
We picked two white people and it'll be fun. No. People who are actually interdenominational what?
Interracial?
Different skins. Okay, yeah. Let's before you do news, Mike, I wanted to read two pieces of listener feedback.
Okay, great.
So the first is
wait, do I actually have to listen? Should I pay attention to this one?
I tune in and out every now and then. You'll be fine.
Okay, great.
Just say interesting at the end of it and you'll be good.
Oh, okay.
Swingers. Someone wrote in and said, as a bisexual male swinger, I wanted to thank you for today's podcast. You did a wonderful job. Thank you. I can also say that the majority of people in the lifestyle are extremely close-minded to bisexual males. Some lifestyle clubs actually forbid any male-male interactions in public spaces, which is one reason my wife and I stopped attending club events and switched to house parties with a more comfortable and open-minded atmosphere. But yes, there are gays in the lifestyle, although they are few in number. The number of bi guys does seem to be increasing, but most will still label themselves as straight on the lifestyle sites. So while the lifestyle may seem extremely open-minded and welcoming, there is still a lot of work to be done to remove the stigmas of male bisexuality. And then they talk about how they love us and blah, blah, blah. And that is from Mr. Bi 45.
Interesting.
Perfect.
No, thank you. That's really great. Thanks for validating. Because I think anytime we cover something that we're totally fucking not even a little bit knowledgeable about, we're nervous we're going to fuck it up. And we got some great feedback about that episode that like we at least didn't fuck it up. So
yeah. I think
minimal bar met.
C-. We passed. Okay, the next one is about your favorite topic, the bussy.
Oh, giant dicks? No. Oh, sorry. Okay. Go ahead.
Bussy.
The bussy.
Bussy. Yeah. Hi, I love your podcast. I'm just listening to the recent episode concerning bussy. In German, bussy means something like a small kiss to to family members or friends.
Oh, God.
E.g., my mother used to ask me to give grandma a bussy.
No.
Whenever we visited her. Smiley face.
Oh, no.
So even if the word was used in English-speaking countries for quite something different, here, I'm from Austria, it's used for small kiss for at least 39 years. Wakey face. So bussies to you all. That's from A. Gregor. That was on Twitter. And then they followed up and said, one more thing. This magazine for preschoolers is called Bussy Bear. I used to read it. I think it still exists. So I guess I'm going to post Bussy Bear to our to all of our
Bear? Oh.
For kids. It's for kids. I've seen a few Bussy Bears. They were not for kids.
Oh, yeah.
So
wow.
Thank you for all of the feedback. We appreciate it.
Wow. Okay.
After that, news.
Yeah, sure. This isn't a correction, but this is a developing story. So last week we talked about Alex Morris, the mayor of that town, who was banging dudes and maybe got in trouble for it. Okay.
College dudes.
I think we've gotten the most feedback of any news story ever about this particular story.
Yeah, we got a lot of people writing in.
And here's the thing. whether you agree with what he did or not, or what you think he was doing or not, there is evidence to suggest that those Democratic student clubs were actually conspiring to try to get this guy, to get dirt on him, so that their favored candidate, who is the incumbent, would not only be reelected, but also might give them jobs and or internships. So apparently, so there's several threads that go all the way back to October of Mr. Morse starting the process of running for Congress. And there, as far back as October 2019, these student groups at UMass Amherst start talking about ways that we can get dirt on him. And they explicitly discussed how they could find Morse's dating profiles and potentially lead him into saying something incriminating that would then damage his campaign. What's interesting is apparently they tried multiple times and they never got the smoking gun. They never got him to provide them with the evidence that they were hoping for. So they then leveled these broader charges that he behaved inappropriately toward college students in general, the outlet claimed. So
sometimes to get a smoking gun, you got to smoke a dick.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So the group's president, Andrew Abramson, met Alex Morse in person at a College Democrats event on October 5th. The pair later struck up a conversation on Instagram, and although they appeared to have discussed nothing more than their weekend plans, message logs suggest they were considered incriminating enough. Quote, "This will sink his campaign," one of the messages, purportedly from Ennis, read. So
are they actually, do we know if the college students are actually gay or bi? Like, were they straight dudes on the apps trolling, or were they actual gay, bi, queer, whatever dudes that...
Boy, that's a great question. Is that addressed here? Doesn't say.
The reason I ask is it almost sounds like you talked about on gay baiting, because I listen to you and remember things you say about people, like politicians, using coded gay language to try to sing other politicians. And like, this looks like people, even though they didn't get the smoking gun, they're like, oh, he, like, the damaging part for most people is he's on these sites, like that. It's basically like he's gay. Like, they're using that same tactic. So it'd be interesting to know if they are gay themselves and are using gay as a way to try to damage this guy's career or political run. That'd be shitty either way, but also like especially shitty if it's someone within your own community.
Yeah, well, I also, totally, absolutely. This is starting to look like, let's say it's 3. I don't fucking know how many it is. The article doesn't say, but let's say 3 of these college Democrat folks trying to ruin this guy's candidacy, whether they are gay or not. They sort of introduce themselves and maybe flirt with him a little bit in person and then get added to his Instagram story. And then he's DMing them on Instagram, and the logs that they have that they've shown screenshots of are genuinely innocuous things like, "What did you do last weekend?" And then,
I was saying like the hookup apps. Was this all on Instagram?
The screenshots that are in this article by Pink News are from Instagram DMs.
Gotcha. Okay.
Although there's also a picture of Morse's Twitter profile that's included in some of the materials. So I'm unclear whether Twitter DMs are also part of what's happening. But let's just like go through the thought exercise of these 3 college kids meet and flirt with this gay candidate enough that he adds them to a private Instagram group, and they regardless of who engages, they DM each other. And it's legit about shit like the weather and the barbecue that you had last weekend. There's no sexual content there. Did he do anything wrong then?
This is what I was thinking as well. Like, regardless of what their intent was, he didn't know their intent. So how did he react to college students like flirting or messaging him? I mean, you can have a bigger like conversation about how should lecturers, professors handle their profiles, like, you know, any kind of social media with students. And I think, sure, you can have like this discussion about whether they should or not, but overall, like communicating over Instagram about your weekend is totally acceptable. Like, that's fine. That's a very legit approach to social media with students.
Yeah. Yep.
What do you think?
Well, I think I'm going to read through this chat, and I don't know how to do it in a really super crisp way. I didn't practice this, Kyle. I'm just going to fucking try it.
Do voices. Okay, God.
I can't do voices. So there is a chat between the college Democrats that includes screenshots of an Instagram DM thread with Alex Morse. Okay. So the first one, this is Democrat to Democrat, says, not overt, but it's very clear he's not talking to me for no reason. And then the screenshot is the Democrat says to Morse, thank you. It was good to see you too. We don't see what's above that, but we assume that that's just a like, hey, thanks for the ad. I don't know what Alex Morse said to this kid, but this kid says, thank you. Good to see you too. Smiley face. Alex Morse says, how's the rest of your weekend? The kid says, pretty good. I went home last night to surprise my mom for her birthday. HBU ? And he says, oh, that's nice. How was that? I had an event to go to last night to speak, then had a wine tasting party at a friend's house. Now I am in North Adams about to march in a parade. And then the kid says, this is not to Alex Morse, but this is now outside of the screenshots, back to just Democrat to Democrat. He says, like, read that message. Also, don't mind me totally leading him on. And I don't know how you can read that and think that there's any sexual tension whatsoever. There's like, I don't know. Does everyone think I'm sexting them? If this is what y'all think is sexting, millennials? Like,
yes. Okay. I do think. Okay, first of all, I would like to just know, you say kid to help clarify, this man that's over 18.
Man.
Just to make sure that's... but yeah,
18 to 22-year-old man.
Yeah. I do some things early on in conversations to test the waters and see how it's going to go. And those are things like put in smiley faces or continue the conversation, particularly by asking questions. Things about the weekend are nice because then they're more likely to be a little bit like crazier or more like I could see how this could have been him trying to get the conversation to go that direction, or it could be him being friendly. This is one of those, it's hard to know what their intent was during it, but I could see how someone, especially in the gay world where you start a little bit coded or subtle or whatever, that's trying to be the start of something more. But I agree, there's nothing incriminating there. There's nothing bad. There's nothing sexual. There's nothing wrong.
I just find it hilarious, the analysis, Democrat to Democrat, saying like, oh, this is good. We totally got him. Based on this, like, what did you do last weekend conversation? I don't understand it.
It's the smiley face.
Anyway. So I think this is a developing story. We'll see what happens. He has said that he's not dropping out of the campaign. He continues to deny any impropriety, that he has broken any policies of either his employer or the city for which he is a mayor. And we'll keep an eye on it.
Interesting.
And I also think something about this story that's terrifying is I think any gay person that has any thoughts about potentially being in politics worries about exactly this.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I feel like anything. That's why I don't send dick pics. Like, it's this thing where all of a sudden someone posts this everywhere. And I have plenty of things that are not just smiley faces, are far more direct or shitty or overt or too sexual too soon. I have plenty of these that if someone wanted to like put them out there, I would look like a terrible person.
Yeah.
But you're right. This is like the worst nightmare. Okay.
So back to the rest of the news.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you waiting for me to try to do a news theme song?
I was going to provide a little bit of a space there and just sort of like hold my breath Great. What did your dog do when you made that horrible sound just now?
I think he left.
Great. That was good. If only I could too. Okay. News the first. So shit's pretty terrible in Poland.
Yeah.
A third of Poland has declared itself an LGBT free zone earlier this year, which we've talked about on the show before. The country's president, Andrzej Duda, went on to capitalize on rising homophobic sentiment during his re-election campaign, hitting out at, quote, LGBT plus ideology and promising to ban same-sex couples from adopting children. Anyway, 70 renowned cultural figures from across Europe and the United States have expressed their outrage in a letter, a strongly worded letter dated the 17th of August. It begins, quote, "We, the undersigned, express our outrage at repressions directed against the LGBT plus community in Poland. We speak out in solidarity with activists and their allies who are being detained, brutalized, and intimidated." The letter is signed by a whole bunch of real famous people like Margaret Atwood, who, did that show about all those chicks in those red dresses.
Yeah. Yep. 27 Dresses.
The Handmaid's Tale.
Kyle.
Oh.
Handmaid's Tale, Kyle. Ed Harris, Judith Butler, the director of Call Me By Your Name, Luca Guadagnino. What? I don't know how to say his name.
No, I know, but you just kept going and did a face thing and like tried to roll it into like the accent for it. I just enjoyed that.
You're welcome.
He learned it by watching you.
No, he didn't stop in the middle and start again 3 different times.
The open letter notes the shocking arrest of 48 activists in Poland on the 7th of August, just 10 days ago.
Nowadays, every single letter is open. When are we going to finally get back to traditional values and have closed letters?
That's a great question, Kyle. I think you're onto something. Get it together, activists. But there were peaceful protests that were in solidarity with an LGBT plus activist named Margot, who was arrested for damaging a homophobic campaigner's van. And that bunch of protests happened, and then they were all rounded up and not treated very well by Polish authorities. Anyway, it's just nice when you see like allies being allies and actually like doing ally things.
Yeah. I forget if I've mentioned this. My parents lived in Warsaw for almost 2 years. So I visited just for a week. And when this started breaking about like a third was declared a non-LGBT zone or whatever, I sent my dad a message and he was like, wow, I'm really surprised. I never saw anything that seemed like homophobia. And that to me is like, of course you didn't. You're a straight white dude. Like, of course you didn't see anything. Like, there are so many things that are a surprise to him, I think. I'll even talk about the shit going on in Seattle and be like, the police did this crazy thing. He's like, oh, I can't believe that. Like, I don't. And it's like, yeah, you're right. Because you don't walk through the world with that kind of lens on. Yeah. So, yes, the allies that see and recognize and understand and then do something about it are awesome.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. News the next?
Yeah.
This one I think should be fast. We'll see. Just China, which is not known to be a gay-friendly country in general, has approved Truvada for use as PrEP.
Nice.
Yeah. So according to UNAIDS, the United Nations Program on HIV/AIDS, 44% of new HIV infections in Asia and the Pacific region last year were in queer men. China's decision to approve Truvada for PrEP use is going to allow gay men with a new method of prevention in the country, the same one that we've had here for a long time now. But the country is developing a strategy to roll out PrEP nationwide following pilot projects in 6 cities in 2018 that provided the drug on a temporary basis. And it's interesting. Even China's on board.
It's the very like negative view. Like that is a great thing. But like part of me then thinks like, but during the time where it was available and had been tested and everything to now, like the people that contracted HIV, like a big part of that is on China then. Like those, like that those could have been prevented or more likely to be prevented if people took it. Like
yeah. There's absolutely, you're totally right. And that cum is on their hands. Or
get out your jizz towel.
But I also think that like it's got to be scary as a gay person in a country like China, where even if that's available now to you as a preventative, you have to go to the government of China and say, "I'm gay, give me the pills," knowing goddamn well that you're going on a list.
And
right,
if you're still living with your family, like you either have to try to get around it or hide it or talk to them about it. And if they may not be supportive, like, yeah. Fuck.
Yep. But anyway, congrats, China.
But no, it's great. It's cool. I made it sad, but it's great.
News the last but not least.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris, who has become the presumptive vice presidential nominee for the Democratic Party, named her chief of staff last week. And her chief of staff is Karine Jean-Pierre, who is a black lesbian and Haitian American political campaigner. So,
damn.
Yeah, she apparently becomes the first black person to ever serve as chief of staff to a vice presidential candidate, much less a vice president.
Shit, y'all.
Yep.
I want black lesbians to do, like, give them every important job. Like, what?
Well, I think this is proof that Biden Harris is going to win, because if they're hiring black lesbians, they're going to get their shit done.
Kamala Harris, worth noting, I think I will absolutely be voting for Biden, and you should too. Kamala Harris, though, does have some transphobic past that I think she needs to address more directly and properly. That is worth, like, it's important to not just say, yep, fully support, move on, but there are some things that I think we need to explore more with her.
Okay. Do you support her not talking about that until after the election, because she has everything to lose and nothing to gain by doing so right now?
I
understand the principle of the matter. I'm not arguing the principle of the matter at all. I'm just talking pure fucking pragmatic strategy at this point.
I've moved into such a pragmatic mode of unless you're like, I don't know. Yeah, I was going to say, unless you're directly harming someone, like, do anything you have to win, because that's most important. But if anything you have to includes brushing trans people under the table, like, that sucks. That's what gay white people have done for so long to move forward their agenda. Yep. So I don't know. I guess okay, here, I don't do this enough. I would defer to, trans people should figure out, like, is this a pressing issue that we need to address before or not? Like, I should. Yep. I don't need to have a say in this. I will defer to.
Yeah. I mean, there's a very dirty, seedy underbelly of politics that's no fun, that nobody wants to talk about, where, like, if you apologize to a group that needs an apology, but you piss off a bigger group, you maybe hold off on the apology. And that's gross, and it feels gross, but it's definitely part of the calculus right now.
Yep.
That's the news. Great. I thought that was going to be a happy ending, and then
sorry,
hopeless and dirty.
It's so black lesbians. You did it. You've arrived. Your struggles are over. I want to thank a few of our Patreon members. Calvin Habig. That's definitely not how you say it. Alan Knudsen, Andrew Clems, Rudy Morales, and Andrew, which we had to just a mononym Andrew before, but I think this is a
maybe
different
just keep
one.
Andrew on the list every week. Just like
Andrew, thank you, Andrew. Thank you, thank you, Andrew, again and again and again. I think it's a different Andrew, but they don't know who is who, so talk amongst yourselves, Andrews, and divide them up however you choose. If you want bonus episodes, content, fun things, quarterly happy hours, if you want 4 out of 5 of those things, then go to patreon.com/Gayish podcast and help support us, and we love you for it.
Hey, Kyle.
Oh, hey, Mike.
I'm going to say something that my racist uncle always says, but I love it.
Okay, cool.
In my bedroom, I have all of the doors and windows closed, and it's been so hot in Seattle here. It's hotter than a jerked off wildcat in here.
What?
I know. It does
What's
not
that
make
mean?
any. I don't know. Very hot is what that means. Hotter than a jerked off wildcat.
Oh, so the thing, he happens to be racist, but the thing is not racist.
Oh, no, it's not. Oh, sorry. You're right. I did make that sound like it was going to be that.
I was like,
not.
what's a wildcat? And why do I need to stop using that word? I'm fine with that, but what is that? That's very confusing. I feel like some of those things, like, you could just put in anything, like, it's as hot as a toe tickler's tummy. And, like, that means nothing, but, like, you know what it means.
Yep, for sure.
It's
very hot.
I bought an industrial grade fan. So it doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't help.
Just moves the hot around.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Speaking of hot, do you want to talk about interracial relationships?
Yes, I do. Like I said, we're going to have guests, but I mean, just have you been in interracial? Damn it. Why can I not say that? Interracial relationship?
The first man I dated, not just fucking, was an African-American gentleman. And so like my very first baby gay steps into the universe were as part of a interracial coupling. We were never boyfriends, so that I struggle with the language there a little bit, but we were seeing each other, not just banging. And
yeah. You don't have to say his name, but I know who this is, right?
Darrell.
Oh, okay. Well, you can't say his name. Yeah. My longest to date relationship was with a guy who is Puerto Rican, and
Jay-Z.
Yep, Jay-Z. You may have heard of him on other episodes called we call him Jay-Z. So Jay-Z, it didn't come up too much, but when I met his family, it was very much I was the white person sitting down with a Puerto Rican family, and it was almost like, and he would tell me this, like, they looked at me a little bit differently. Like they knew, like they felt it. They felt like that it is a white person sitting at the table, which is just interesting. It was always, they had an amazing, supportive, loving family, but it just was a little bit of a thing.
I think the only time I don't want to say that if it's not true, but I can't think fast enough to think of another example. The only time I've been yelled at, like gay slurs, was when I was hanging out with him, and I wondered if that's because we stood out because we were interracial. Like a carload of bros drove by and said and yelled at us, "Don't be gay, faggots!" And I always kind of wondered, like, is that again just because we stood out? Yeah,
that would make sense.
And that was on Capitol Hill, like the gayborhood of Seattle. Like, people who think that shit doesn't happen here, it happens here.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I wanted to mention, like, I don't want to turn this into, well, I dated someone who wasn't white, whatever.
Yeah.
So just want to make it very clear. Neither of us are saying that. And in fact, it is very clear to me that just shit I've been learning, and we've even talked about on the white privilege episode. Like, I know that dating someone of a different race does not absolve me of my privilege. It doesn't mean I know everything. It doesn't, like, so this is why we will be having guests on to help talk about this.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else before we bring them on?
I mean, hopefully we'll talk about this with them. That relationship did not go very far, but it was already hard. Like, I already noticed cultural differences between he and I. I already had anxiety about, like, hanging out with his black friends. I had anxiety about introducing him to my white friends. Like, we weren't together for that long, and it was already hard. And I'm interested in learning about this couple who've been together for long enough to be married. They're married, right?
Yes, they're married.
Yeah.
So we're going to have Marko and Tony, who are from the podcast Relationsh, spelled with an exclamation in the shit. That's important to get there. And I've never before on my paper written Marko Black. Tony, white or Italian American. I don't generally do that, just to clarify. I don't usually do that, but I'm doing it on this so I remember who to address different questions. It is relevant in this case. So.
Or maybe in the show notes from here on out, you can put everybody's pronouns and their skin color and
perfect.
Basic demographic information.
Well, I mean, I don't want to be like, whichever's the black one, can you answer this question? Like, that's not going to look cute. Also, we just happen to be on, unrelated to this episode, we're going to be on the Minority, TEA, Report, which is a different podcast. We're going to be on their show on Monday, August 24th, I think. So they are all black men in interracial relationships. So we're doing some interracial shit right now.
Yeah. Gayish is a interracial gangbang, apparently.
Only when we invite them on.
Yeah. Boy. I had dreams when we started this show, Kyle, and most of them led here. So when we get back, we'll have Relationship on with us. Should we take a break?
Let's take a break.
Let's take a break.
Break
me.
This is the part where Mike and Kyle take a break.
Are we back?
We're back.
We're back.
We are here with Marko and Tony Critelli from the Relationship podcast. Thank you so much for being on.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah. I did forget to mention this before y'all joined us. This was also a listener request from Brandon Pettigrew to talk about interracial relationships. So thank you, Brandon, for that request.
Yeah.
Okay.
And thanks for doing our Discord for us.
And all the other shit you do. We appreciate you. Well, why don't we talk a little bit, just kind of tell us a little bit about your relationship so we know kind of where you're coming from.
So the Cliff Notes version is that, unfortunately, we met each other in Florida. And I always
promptly left.
Yeah, I hate that part of the story because I have to admit to having lived in Florida, which is just not very much fun. But that said, yeah, so we met each other in Florida. I was living in St. Petersburg and Tony was living in Tampa, and he was coming across the bridge into St. Petersburg. He had just gotten out of a relationship and was like moving for his job in St. Pete. I had just gotten cheated on and broken up with an ex-boyfriend, and I was just like looking for gay friends. And so like back in the day before apps, we were on Adam for Adam. And
the chat room.
And met Tony, thought he just seemed like a really cool person. We like bonded over chicken wings and
clean lines in a carpet from a vacuum
vacuuming and the lines of the carpet for vacuuming. And and then we like just became friends and we talked for like over a month. And then finally we like met up at this little gay bar in St. Pete called Georgie's Alibi. And
which is closed now.
It's closed now.
So sad.
And then like that night over $3 Long Island's, he essentially told me he liked me, and I told him I think I liked him too. And then we're together ever since then.
Every day.
Yeah. 11 years ago. That was 11 years ago.
Damn. And how long have you been married?
It'll be 4 years in October.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Forever.
Yeah.
Does that feel like a long time in gay years? Because it sounds like one.
It feels like a long time in all years.
Yeah.
Like it just, it's like, it just feels very, like we always joke with each other that like, I'm a very patient person to even like have been around for like this long, but yeah, it's a really long time.
So I want to put your fears at ease. I don't launch into this on most episodes and with most guests, but because it's germane to the conversation, can I ask you guys about your racial, ethnic identities?
Yeah, I am, for all intents and purposes, an African-American man, black male. And Tony...
I'm Italian-American, so I'm just white.
Yeah.
So just making sure everybody knows that you're qualified to talk about what's
totally. I have a degree in blackness. So.
And I'm just about as white as they come.
Okay.
Spell come.
Perfect.
Yes.
But y'all mentioned when we were emailing that you have, in spite of the things you bonded over, like clean vacuum lines, you have a lot of differences beyond just skin color. What are some of the big differences? between the two of you?
Marco's super into fashion, and I could give a shit how I look ever.
Yeah.
Marco likes to have lots of nice things, and I'm Buddhist.
I love like pop music and R&B music.
And I love Indian metal.
And
did you say Indian metal?
Yes, indie and metal. Yep.
Indie and metal.
And
got
metal.
it. I was going to be really interested in Indian metal.
Oh, Indian metal, yes.
I just hadn't heard of that before.
It's a thing.
So just essentially like any and everything that you could possibly think of, like the two of us are in opposite directions. Mm-hmm. We're on like complete opposite ends of the spectrum, but opposite ends of the like argument for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It sucks.
It sucks, but it's great. I guess it's working for you.
It's been working so far.
Yeah, the jury's still out on that one. It's funny because we always say that like our differences are like when we're mature enough to like acknowledge them, they are the best part of our relationship because we learn from each other and like we enrich each other and all of that psychobabble bullshit.
Well, we always said it would either make or break us.
Right.
Because we are so different.
But then on the other end, like when it is not fun, it is really not fun, and we don't like each other, and we
don't make sense to each other.
We don't make sense to each other.
We're not patient with each other.
And it's like
it can be challenging.
So it can be incredibly challenging. Yeah, it's hard.
Well, then talking about that, like let's really get into race now. Have any of those disagreements or differences or things you don't understand about each other? How much of that is race, and what are those conversations you have?
I mean, it's a growing percentage because you've like really become like your blackness has become more and more important to you. Like the longer we've been here or just the longer you've been on the planet.
Sure.
But like, when we lived in Florida, most of your friends were like cisgender, white, heterosexual females.
Well, because that's all that's in Florida.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Where's the lie? But since coming to New York, like your connection to your blackness, to your community has grown just exponentially. Like I remember the first party we went to where I was the only white person, and like you ended up staying there till like 3 a.m. and having these incredible conversations. Sure. And I just could not connect to so much of it. So it's, it's become increasingly more. I mean, there's like lots of literature in the house around this. You and I have conversations around it a lot more. I mean, I grew up in a tiny little town on a farm. So like just even like access to pop music was not a thing, let alone like topics like Black culture or just ethnic identity in general. So it's become, living in New York, it's become more of a thing for us. You getting older and like engaging more in it, it's become a thing. The current political climate has made it more of a thing. So yeah, it's definitely grown a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a Black man. Like that's just always been a thing, and so I can say that like I always naturally gravitate towards other Blackness in my life. Like one of my best friends in Florida he's Panamanian, but he's Black. And so that's kind of always been a thing as well. That said, yes, my life has been revolved around white people. I grew up in Las Vegas. I went to college in Reno, which is like one of the whitest parts of Nevada that you could ever possibly be in. So like that, and then I moved to Florida, which again, super white. So, that being said, Blackness has been important, but it's always kind of been like, well, I just got to make do with what's around me. But I don't think we answered your question, but to answer your question, as part of our relationship, it's been, there's been a lot. I think I always have this thing that I tell Tony, like white people are raised completely differently than Black people. And so a lot of our relationship has to do with like the constraints on life that I think Black parenting does to their kids. And then Tony's like all willy-nilly and free and, like owns the earth because all cisgendered, white men can do that kind of thing like that. And I'm like, there's no, you can't do that. You can't be there. You can't have that. Like those things are like things that you have to like wait to be invited to or things like, and it's been really challenged. That's been a challenge for us for sure.
So then do you ever have, I want to get like the specific deeds. Do you have like specific arguments or discussions about race? Like, hey, you didn't realize this was a thing because I'm black, or what you said was incorrect, or you can't, like, bringing someone to a group of friends that they're all white, or I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the one example I can think of is there was this one night that it was Halloween. And we were, so it's me, black person, Tony, white person, and then a friend of ours who is a white male and his girlfriend who is an Asian female. And we all went out. Everyone's like drunk. We had like drank, like had a really good time. We went to a gay bar. Everybody's having fun. And then we like left. We were like leaving the gay bar. And, this is in Hell's Kitchen here in Manhattan. And, all the gays are out. Everyone's having like a great time. And this guy walks by and he has this hat on. And Tony's like, Peyton. Oh, probably shouldn't have thrown on his name, but whatever. It doesn't matter. He's like, Peyton.
Do you want me to bleep that?
No, you don't have to worry about it. It's fine. He's like, Peyton, I love that hat. And Peyton's like, yeah. And he's like, go get it for me. And so Peyton starts to like go and like grab the hat from the guy, or like in whatever way, shape, or form, like go and do it. And I like flipped. It was like the end of the night. It was like 3:00 in the morning. I was just like ready to go home, but I like flipped out because I was like, guys, it is Halloween. We're in the middle of Manhattan. If you guys get in a fight or if anything happens or anything like that, guess who's going to be arrested? Not your white faces, mine, because I'm in the vicinity and I'm the only person that would probably be like questioned or asked about any of this. And Tony didn't realize the gravity of the argument at the time. He just thought he was like having like a fun drunk time. But like for me, it was like a really intense, like my blood pressure like rose moment because I don't know, the anxiety around like an altercation and I'm the only black person right there in that moment, like just felt really heavy. And so, of course, the next day, of course, I had to go off on him regarding the situation. but yeah, it took like it's like those moments and like those interactions that like he just doesn't pay attention to. Those things like don't equate to him. He doesn't think about them.
Yeah, and I would say, that was several years ago. And I would say that since then, probably the only other time that you and I have really had significant problems is you talk about something that's in the news and I ask a lot of questions about it. And my questions are probably very white. So I'll say, what else was the person doing? What are the other circumstances? Like, I just ask for more information. And I've since learned to not do that, but for a long time I did. And it clearly was very upsetting to Marko.
Yeah, because I was like, what the fuck does that matter? Like, at the end of the day, like, this is the situation. And that's like, who cares? That doesn't mean that the person was supposed to die. Like, and it's been a new thing. So, yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of black friends whose parents like drilled into them as a child. Here's how you avoid the police. If you are forced to interact with the police, here's how you interact with them to maximize the chances that you're not going to die. Like, these are not conversations white parents have with their kids.
Never.
Are they conversations that your parents had with you, Marko? Like,
oh my God, I was like 4 years old when I got the first conversation about it. Like, hold your hands as soon as you go into, like, hold my dad's hands the second we go into the store, and do not let go of his hands the entire time we're in there. Do not touch anything. Do not ask for anything. Do not do any of those things. And before, we used to think that my dad was like being like super strict, but it was because he didn't want us to be accused of stealing. He didn't want people to see like us roaming the store and thinking that we were, plotting to steal or anything of that nature. I remember driving with my dad and very vividly at like 8 years old, him having the conversation with us about like, if a police officer ever stops you, it's yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. It's keeping your hand on the steering wheel. And if they ask you to grab things, you ask them if it's okay for you to grab your license and registration, like being able to, like, it was very, it was just like very intense. And it's like a conversation that constantly happens within your household because anytime, especially as a Black male, that you leave the house, like your parents are shallowly breathing the entire time. They cannot rest until you come back home. They're terrified of what the world may do to you while you're out hanging out with your friends. And, you know, my dad used to always tell me, like, you can't do everything your white friends can do. Like, just you just can't do everything your white friends can do. And so just remember that when you're going out in the world. And that was a very, it wasn't until like later in life that I actually understood what that meant. But it's very rough. It's like a tough reality that you have to live with every single day. I always say that I have like, by the time I wake up in the morning, I have 2 strikes against me before I even leave the house. And that's that I'm a Black first and then I'm gay second. And so it's like, it's very hard. And at any given time, people can find a reason to just not like me. And more than anything, it's about or related to my race.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if this is like the 3rd strike then. So you're an interracial couple. So then like that, even with straight cis people, like interracial couples are still not totally like, everyone's still not totally down with that. So
sure.
Do you feel like you've gotten any kind of reactions or comments or hate specifically because of the interracial nature? Or does it all like, can you even tell what's okay, we're interracial versus we're gay versus I'm Black? Like, how do you suss out all the strikes against you?
Yeah. I think Florida had more of, I mean, surprise, surprise, but I think Florida had more of that stuff evident than like New York does, for example. Like, I remember, it was so funny. Like, I remember at the beginning of me and Tony's relationship, there was this like group of Black guys that were like at the bar. I was like out one night and there was this group of Black guys and I was like walking by and one of the guys went to come and try to talk to me and his friend was like, no, don't talk to him. He is a snow queen. They called me a snow queen, which I thought was hysterical because I was like, isn't that a cocaine user? Like, I thought but I thought that was super weird. But yeah, they were like, no, don't talk to him. He's a snow queen. And then like my other friend was like, oh no, that means like a guy that like only dates white guys. And I was like, but that's not even true. Like, but whatever. And then Tony has been identified as a chocoholic. As again, this is
funny because you're like the second Black guy I've ever dated. Not that I keep track of that sort of stuff, but like when that came up, I was like, how many Black guys have I dated?
Yeah,
which it's just interesting. And well, and back to your original question, for me, it's really easy to suss out the differences because not to call out any one particular person in my family, but they're very old world. They're very pre-love judicial case. Like they're racist. I mean, that is just what it is. It is racist. There is bigotry. And so like the saying in my family ever since I was very little was you had to blow out all the candles on your birthday cake. And if you didn't, you were going to have a Black baby. Like that was a negative thing. Like I remember and I remember when I was talking to a certain someone in my family about like how I was having what I thought was going to become a significant relationship when Marko and I were first dating. And the first words and this person said, oh, you should bring him by. And I said, I don't think that's a good idea right now. And the first words out of this person's mouth were, why is he Black? And that was legitimately the question. And my response was, yeah, yeah, he is. Yeah. Like, let's sit with this for a minute. Yep. That's what's going on. Your turn. So I do think that there are times when we can clearly suss it out. I know you have had, like over the years, you've had some real challenges with certain ways of thinking in my family, not just because of us both being men, but because you are Black and I am not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely been an issue.
Let's let that shock settle for just a little bit. I think there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because it's not at all funny, but blowing out the candles is just like 2 reasons that's not going to happen. And one of them is I'm not going to have a black baby because the place I'm putting it is not going to result in a baby. So that should be the least of my problems with that. But still, that's the other thing that came to mind.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's so crazy. I mean, and then, you know, like my side of the family, for the most part, everything has been completely fine. I think initially it's funny because I think like letting my like family know that I was like moving in with a guy more than anything. I think the first question that came about was like, is he a black guy or is he a white guy? I think that was more like curiosity than it was like non-acceptance, if that makes any sense. But
I think it's another form of bigotry that exists that we often don't talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to deny that, but I think it was less rooted in like, we don't want you dating a white guy than it was, you know, more.
We'd rather you were dating a black guy.
We'd rather you dating a black guy.
Is that different?
I don't know. Life is already hard for me being gay. Why would I want to make it harder and date a white man?
So you both mentioned that you had dated interracially before, but were any of those also serious relationships? Like, did you cut your teeth on these issues with each other mostly, or did you have quite a bit of experience with the kinds of problems that you might have from these previous relationships?
So my two somewhat serious relationships prior to Tony were both white men, but
Snow Queen.
But they weren't necessarily, but like in between them, like I dated guys that would have me. So no, but it just wasn't, it was just, you know, whoever, like I didn't really care.
I kind of want to say neither for me, because like I mostly have not dated white men, like one very serious relationship and one other relatively serious relationship with the white guys. But the vast majority of people that I've dated have not been white. They've been sort of everything else.
Sure.
But I would also say that I never cut my teeth on this issue until now. And I think that's part of the big growing pains is I didn't live in places where diversity was a thing. Like that was never a thing. I remember being like, I think I was like 7 years old, and my mom had to tell me my best friend was black, and I didn't know what that meant. And like she had this conversation with me about how that was like the only black kid in our neighborhood, and it was fine that I was friends with him, but just know that some people might say some things and that I should come talk to her anytime that happened. And that was kind of the area I grew up in for like the rest of my life until well after college. So it was predominantly white. There wasn't a lot of diversity. It wasn't until I transferred to another college, and that was in Denver. And that was when I got into like diversity and culture, and like all that started to matter to me and make sense. But having to deal with the issues of race is something that's relatively new for me.
At 30,
and that's white privilege.
38 years old.
And that's white
which
privilege.
Is super crazy. Yeah. That's insane. Yeah.
Tony, you mentioned that it's also been a more recent thing given political climate, you know, all the black issues, Black Lives Matter going on. So, but Marko, I'm curious to hear your take on that. Like, you know, what's it been like in the past couple of years?
That's a really good question.
Thank you. You don't have to answer. You just had to compliment me. Next
segment, please.
Yes. And we're done. No. So one day, Tony, this is in the midst of like the Ahmaud Arbery, you know, murder, the George Floyd murder, the Breonna Taylor, like this was like after the fact. And like you know, I'm like heated. I like got a book that's like, you know, why I'm no longer talking to white people about race. Like, and I'm like really like into like all of this stuff. And Tony looked at me one day and he goes, "How are you feeling about me?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "How are you feeling about your white husband while all of this race stuff is going on?" And I had to think about it for a quick second because I think at the end of the day, like he's my husband, but I never really like thought about him as like my white husband. But then at the same time, he's very much so my white husband. And so it just didn't necessarily like compute that he was not on the same side of the argument as I was. And he wasn't, you know, for the record. But that being said, I had to like think about it. And I was like, I don't feel any kind of way about you. I feel like you've learned a very valuable lesson, which is just shutting the hell up and like listening.
Yeah.
And I think beyond that, like you're here, like you're witnessing all of this and you're like trying to better understand it. And that's all that can be asked of you. Like not any one person, not even the Black community has all the answers on how any of this stuff like works or will get better. But the fact of the matter is that you are trying. And I think that that's all that matters. So for me, it's never really been, I don't know. He's, again, my husband is very white, and a lot of the things that like he does not understand about things, I'm kind of like, did you not have like television in your town? Like you had no radios or anything like that to like understand these things?
Nope.
We went to a Beyonce concert and Jay-Z was rapping Big Pimpin'.
Big Pimpin', we spending cheese. Check them out now. Big Pimpin' on BLAD.
And Tony's like, I have no idea what song this is. And I was like, are you an alien? Like,
too busy with your Indian rock music.
Yeah, right. No, but you actually hit the nail on the head. I didn't have TV and I didn't have radio.
That's not true. You did have TV because you had time to play your video games.
I didn't have cable.
You weren't enthralled in pop culture or like anything like that.
No, I literally didn't have cable.
You did, but you know the Cosby Show was on basic television and stuff like that. So like,
well, that's probably better. That
you know, one of the podcasts I listen to does not refer to it as the Cosby Show. They refer to it as the Felicia Rashad Show, and I thought that was brilliant.
I'm stealing that. I love that.
I thought it was great. I thought it was so good. So so that being said, I do kind of have like my own little like mork in my house, if you will, that I have to like. That's a reference to a television show that a lot of your listeners probably don't even know about. But that said, he is like a little bit of an alien that I kind of have to like teach about like things that are happening within like culture and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
That said, like, I think that all too often what our problem as people is that we think that like our experiences are everybody's experiences. Mm-hmm. And we just ignore the fact that people see the world or experience the world in a completely different way than we do. And that's the really frustrating part, is that we give way too much credit to people. And so, you know, so that being said, like, I sometimes just assume Tony knows and understands the shit that I'm experiencing. And then I forget that like a lot of those moments are teachable moments because he hasn't experienced those things. Like, again, I grew up in Las Vegas. He grew up in like a small town in North Carolina. Like, there's no way that like our experiences are going to mirror one another. Like, there's going to be teachable moments, and I have to sometimes like slow myself down and say like, this is what blank is, you know, and help him understand it as well. Yeah.
So it's more commonly a thing for people of color, but I did want to ask you guys about code switching and whether you find yourself code switching around each other's families, and to what degree.
I love these questions.
You definitely do.
I have to.
You have to.
Like, I absolutely have to. Like,
you've been made to feel that you have to.
Yeah, I 100% have to. So Tony's side of the family, like his cousins and everything, they're very like Rochester, Buffalo white boys. So it's like very like, well, first of all, I can't talk about anything political because they like mainly support Trump. And so I have to like pretend like I don't hate them. And then beyond that, I have to like talk about like things that I just normally wouldn't talk about. I like at all. And then on the other side of the the coin, he has like his girl cousins that like absolutely love me, that want to like get together and talk about like makeup and skincare and how to like do their hair. And I'm like, and then I have to like do that for a little while and like play that person. And then by the end of it, I'm drunk and
it's all okay.
Yeah. Wait, so Marko, how much of those are toning down the blackness or toning down the gayness? Or, well, it sounds like with the females, you can play up the gayness, but like with the males, is it both? Is it one more than the other?
So I've always said this to Tony, and it's like the weirdest thing that happens to me throughout my life, but I'm always like safe in just about every social circle that I'm ever involved in. I'm like the safe Black person. I'm the safe gay person. I'm the safe guy. Like I'm always safe for a lot of people. So a lot of it, I think, like I know that his cousins refer to me as the Black family member that like they can throw out when someone calls them racist. I just know I just know it because I get along with them. They love me. Like we interact with one another. I make them feel safe. We never have to like really have it out with one another and everything is like fine. I know that I'm also the reference. We're the reference to like, my cousin's gay. I can't be homophobic because I'm like safe and they feel okay behind the situation. But we never have to really dive into problems or issues or strong topics.
Well, but let's be fair. There have been some really great personal breakthroughs for people too. Like one of my cousins was homophobic. And he loves you and actually defended you.
Well, all of your family loves you.
Everyone on the planet loves you. So, but he like, and I would say his mother even told us that like, it's not that he's not homophobic anymore, but he's certainly a lot less anti-gay and much more open to defending gay people and like just understanding that culture. So I think that there are some benefits to it too.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I also think that people know that like I don't give a shit about what anyone thinks about me. And so like I can be in the same place as you and you can like literally hate me and it's fine. I'm still gonna flit around the entire party
and like
listen and do whatever it is that I want to do and give two shits about how you feel about me. And I think there's something to be said about that because people are like, oh, like, I guess he's fine. Like, he knows that I like don't really fuck with him, but like, he doesn't really fuck with me either. And so like, we're cool. And like, that's like the beginning and end of it. But yeah, it's hard. But I find myself literally having to like, you know, and then I go to Rochester. I have to think about what I'm packing in Rochester to like wear because I'm like, I don't want to like give off too much gayness. And, you know, I can't, you know, I have to like be the safe Black person as well. Like, you know, I can't like be anything in particular. It's like, I just have to be under the radar.
That sucks.
Yeah.
It's hard.
And especially for you with like, the code switching for you isn't just your language or your behavior. A lot of it is how you dress, because a lot of how you express yourself is your clothes. And so it becomes a part of it too. Like you said, when you go to Rochester, like you can't wear a lot of fun, flamboyant things. You
love to wear my Beyonce bright pink sweatshirt, the BAK like sorority sweatshirt that she has. I would love to do that, but like I can't wear that in Rochester.
No. Yeah.
It sounds like all of these interactions you have to tailor to the location or the people. You have to adjust yourself to fit in with those. That seems shitty. Are you used to it, or does it feel shitty every time?
It's draining. It's super draining. Like and I'm such a social person and I love people and I like to like, you know, dance and like, you know, hang out with people and meet new people and all these other things like that. But it's like draining because I have to figure out what the safest approach is. I remember in Florida, I was like at the bar ordering a drink and there was a white guy that was next to me and he was ordering it. He was like drinking, his like back was turned to the bar and, you know, but he was like standing like 3 feet away from me. And like, I got my drink and I like turned around and I was there by myself. So I didn't like know where I was going or what was happening next. And, I looked over at him and I was like, hey, you know, like, hey, like, what did you get to drink? And he like looked up at me and he goes, "I'm not into black guys." And I was
God.
"You're not even cute enough to try to get with me, but I was just asking you what you were drinking." And it was just like so funny, but I was like, what the fuck? Like, how did that like happen? But like those are like moments that like slightly happen, you know, like in like the smallest form that like really, I always say Florida reminded me that I was a black man. Florida, like every time I turned around, Florida, whether it was, I just moved from, you know, Vegas or from Reno actually, and was like busy opening up a store that I was working for. That's the reason why I had moved there. And I was like getting everything prepared. And I had been there for like a month and hadn't had time to like change my plates and got stopped by the cops that were like, "You should have your plates changed already," and gave me a ticket for it. And I was like, would you stop anybody else if this was the thing? Because like you probably would have just assumed that I was a tourist and I was just in Florida and driving around, but I got stopped for it. Or you have that white guy that says, "I don't date black guys." And I was like, I was just asking you what the fuck was in your glass. Like, those things are hard.
Yeah.
So that's a weirdly good segue. I wanted to ask about the filters on dating apps, Scruff and Grindr in particular, and being able to like screen based on ethnicity, and then the byproduct of that of like, I only date white guys or black guys or no Asians, those types of messages that you see on profiles, and then the whole philosophy that it's just a preference. I'm wondering like if you can weigh in on all of that.
No, that's racism. And I'm done.
There you go. So to be 100% honest with you, like I don't have very much experience on the dating apps because, again, I met Tony during, you know, when like dinosaurs were roaming the earth. And so we didn't like necessarily, like we weren't a part of app culture. So we never got to do that. That said, me personally, I think that, look, I was listening to another podcast the other day and they were saying that like it's fine to have preferences as long as you don't vocalize it. Because the problem is when you vocalize it, you can't do it in a way that doesn't sound racist. So if you have preferences and there are like, you know, body types or skin colors or things like that that you're more drawn to, that is completely fine. I think it's so funny to me when I like find myself attracted to another guy, they always just end up looking like my husband. So very clearly, like I have a type that like I'm very attracted to, and it would be, you know, bearded, tall, white guys that like, you know, look like my husband. But that said, like vocalizing that sounds slightly more racist than just going after the guys that look like that. And so I think that when you do that, go ahead.
Oh, I was just realizing that I could call you a snowblower. Sorry, that was not worth interrupting you for.
It kind of was. And very accurate as well. And so,
You're ridiculous. I think for me, it's not so much what you say yes to, it's what you say no to. And that's what makes it racist. Yeah. If you say no of any type, that's racism. If you say I prefer or yes more to a certain type, I think that is a preference. But, you know, to go back to your original question, like, yeah, if you turn the filter where you like uncheck certain boxes, I think that's problematic.
It's super problematic.
Yeah.
I also think like exploring the reason behind your preference, like part of the reason you may have that preference for other white guys is because you didn't grow up around black people. Like, even if you think it is just innocuous, like if you have that preference, it's worth exploring.
Yeah.
Why that is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so, and I always love, I don't know that it's like I said, it's a very interesting question because when like, I always love to ask people, and you guys can answer this if you want to, or you don't have to, but like I always ask, like, have you dated like outside of your race? Like, are you drawn to people outside of your race? And what's very interesting about that is like also all too often the white people will say like, well, no, not really. The only answers I ever really get is like, well, I dated an Asian person or I dated a Hispanic person, because there's some sort of fetishizing that takes place in those races. But for what, and don't get me wrong, there's fetishizing that takes place within Black people, for Black people as well. But like, I think that people generally go for those races because they're quote unquote safe and it's easy, and you can,
or exotic
or like really cool. But like Black people are like, oh no, I don't really like Black people.
We talked about this a little bit in the intro. Yeah, my longest relationship to date has been with someone who's Puerto Rican.
I mean, it's great, but I like one of the things that like I told Tony, I was like, I'm not going anywhere, but like one of the things that like New York has like made me experience and like is being attracted to Indian people, because like there weren't a lot of Indian people on the West Coast where I grew up, and so I didn't really have much exposure to them, and they damn sure didn't live in Florida. So being in New York and seeing like all these very attractive Indian people, I'm like, oh my God, like Indian guys are hot. Like they're really attractive. But like, I don't know that I would have ever put that on my list of people that I'm attracted to, because I didn't really have exposure to that prior to living in New York City.
Yeah.
I'm real nervous about this because I don't have the whole thing figured out yet, but I'm going to start talking. Here I go. My dating history is like, I'm just ballparking here, like 50% white guys, and like I date everybody, but I also wonder if part of it is that hot white gay guys are all out there trying to be the hot white gay stereotype of also dating a hot white gay counterpart, and like people of color are way more forgiving and a lot more open and easier to talk to and hang out with and get real with, because they're not just out there trying to be the next hot white gay person because they can't, because they're not white. And like,
Right.
it feels so much better and like a lot less judgy or bitchy to like hang out with people of color. I don't know.
I mean, I love that. No, I
not this one.
I can be bitchy.
You breathe and drink bitchy.
It's not that I'm bitchy. I just don't put up with shit is what my real thing is. Is like, if you come at me with like a stupid line, like I'm gonna call you out on your stupid line. Like I'm just that person. That was back in the day when I was single. But that said, I can't deny that. Again, when you're kind of on like the outside of the in crowd, this is going to sound really sad, but like you just are excited for any attention and like anybody to like acknowledge you or like engage in you, even if it's just in a friendly manner. Like you are just happy that somebody acknowledged your presence. And I think, again, the problem with Black people all way too often is that we go into social situations and we are either suspect or we are ignored. And that is really problematic. It's really problematic, and, so that's why this is going to sound awful, but you know how oftentimes, heavyweight people tend to have the biggest personalities. It's because they had oftentimes had to show that they were funny or or things like that, because they didn't want to get picked on anymore for being fat or anything of that nature. And I think Black people tend to do that oftentimes. That's why there's so many tropes with like the Black church woman and the Black gay queen and
the sassy Black friend.
The sassy Black friend and all this other stuff, because like we kind of have to be larger than life personalities to get people to like think of us in a positive way. Because the alternative is being arrested or killed or accused of doing things that you didn't do or had no intention of doing, and it just really sucks.
Yeah, you made it sad at the end. You belong on this show.
I was just thinking of that. I was like, wow, that was a really terrible way to end any kind of conversation.
No, it's perfect Gayish style.
I love it.
Any more thoughts? Well,
just be nice to Black people.
It's not hard to do.
And I would say that for me, the biggest lesson has been it is no longer acceptable to be quietly anti-racist. Like whatever you thought you were doing by holding that space is like well below the bare minimum, and you have to do so much more now. You just have to.
Love it.
Well, is that it? Did we do it? We solved it?
Yep.
Everyone's going to date interracially now because we made it.
Yeah, we fixed it. Black people don't have problems anymore.
So should we take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break.
Let's take a break.
This is the part where Mike and Kyle take a break.
So are we back?
We're back.
We're back.
We're going to do hooray. You're welcome. We're back. We're going to do our Gayest and Straightest.
We're going to do our Gayest and Straightest. But first, Marko and Tony from Relationsh, where can people find out more about you and what you're doing and hear you and stuff?
Oh, yeah. So we are on the Facebook, the Instagram, and the Twitter. We are at Pod Relationsh on all of those. And then you can go to our website, which is podrelationshit.com, and you can listen to the podcast, check out our blog, and do all that good stuff. And then we're, of course, on all podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google, Stitcher, all that fun stuff. And the easiest way to look for us is by our last name, which is Critelli. Because for some strange reason, nobody wants to make us searchable by relationship.
And we're going to be on an episode of your podcast, so you can go check that out if you need an intro to their podcast.
Yes, 100%.
Well, and our website is gayishpodcast.com.
So much of our social media is at Gayish Podcast. In fact, all of it is Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and
Great. Our hotline, you can send us text messages or leave us voicemails. It's 5855-GAYISH. That's 585-542-9474. Standard rates apply.
Our email is gayishpodcast@gmail.com.
And our physical mailing address, which is real weird, is P.O. Box 19882, Seattle, Washington, 98109.
Mike, I made a mistake.
What'd you do?
I read a few of the comments. I should not have done that. So if you want to rate, review, subscribe, then or recommend, we would very much appreciate that.
Yep.
Gayest and Straightest?
Yeah, let's do our Gayest and Straightest. You want me to go first?
Sure.
So the gayest thing about me this week, I have been camping for the last 4 days. We left on Thursday. I just got back right before sitting down to record this, which is why my brain is fried because we were outside and the sun was real hot. But the gayest thing about me is that I packed 4 outfits for this camping trip. Multiple shorts, options, loungewear, etc. The straightest thing about me this week, I wore exactly the same thing every single day, except I changed my shirt yesterday, hoping that they wouldn't make fun of me.
Did it work?
No, it did not work.
My gayest thing is potentially the gayest sentence that I've said is my friend who works in, I think like in PR for music, sent me the SoundCloud link for a queer Persian artist to say like, I know you're going to like this song. And so I started I am super into it. Her name is Gia Woods and her song is called Into, which one is Ariana Grande? Into It. Into You is Ariana Grande. It's called Into It. And I've been listening to it on repeat. It's so good. I love it. The straightest thing is also clothing related. I did that thing where I was like, oh, this shirt needs to go in the trash. And so I was like, it's clean technically. So I'm going to wear it the one more time and then put it in the trash. And then I forgot and put it in the laundry. So I'll have one more time of wearing it. You know, like there's that cycle of trash shirts.
It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday, Kyle.
That's beautiful. Is that the Beatles?
Yep.
Marko and Tony.
I'm going to let you go first.
Okay, so the gayest thing I did this week is the gayest thing I do every week, which is my nails. It's the gayest thing I do. I spend a lot of time cleaning them, trimming them, shaping them. They're lovely.
Can we see them so we can judge them?
Yeah.
They're
I
lovely.
hate them. They're so long, and I will not allow him to put his fingers anywhere important with them.
Oh. All right, Tony, we should fix that.
So that was the gayest thing I always do because I buff them, I polish them, I love them. The straightest thing I did, so mine is also clothes. I was wearing the same clothes because I still work from home. I was wearing the same clothes for 3 days, and I decided that 4 days was completely acceptable to wear the same thing.
I cannot. I hate it.
Is he getting called away to business?
No, we have an alarm. He sets an alarm every night at 9:00 to pick up the cat food because our cat decides he vomits every single night if his food is down because he like overeats and then he like throws up, and so his alarm went
Is your
off.
cat actually a gremlin?
I'm convinced that is what is going on.
He throws up. He doesn't turn into a monster.
No, he is a
Because he
fucking
already
demon,
is. Okay.
He is a fucking demon. Okay, so my straightest thing that I've done is I had to go to Sherwin-Williams this week and buy paint. And it was a very straight experience because I like went up to the guy and I was like, can you tell me what the difference between flat and matte is? Because it doesn't make sense to me because I feel like they're the exact same thing. And he's like, matte's shinier. And I was like, are you sure?
Why do I feel like this is also your gayest thing?
I was like, because I feel like they're interchangeable. And he was like, maybe in other countries. And I was like, I don't like this conversation anymore. So it was a whole thing. So that was the straightest thing that I did because I was like, I went up there thinking that I could like talk paint and it didn't go over so well. The gayest thing that I did, which is probably why he responded to me that way, is I was wearing a jumpsuit while doing it. It is very because it was comfortable and it's one thing and I don't have to think about two different things. And so it was easy. And fun.
Everybody loves a romper.
Exactly.
I'm kind of surprised the jumpsuit didn't just like intimidate him into like submitting to your gay opinions about paint. Like,
no, I think he was like trying to figure out why the fuck I was in Sherwin-Williams. Yeah.
Well, that's it. This has been Gayish. A special thank you to Marko and Tony Critelli for being here from the Relationship podcast. Thank you again so much for being here.
Thank you guys.
Thank you for
it was so
having
much
us.
fun.
Yeah, and thank you to Brandon for requesting this topic. So hopefully we did it, Brandon. If not, don't let us know.
Also, I forget why, but I wrote down thank you to Felicia Rashad.
Yeah, the star of the Felicia Rashad show.
Correct.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. That's great.
Okay, that's it. I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz. Until next week, be butch, be fabulous, be you. See you next week.
Bye. Bye.
Date outside your race.
I'm dead.